So I'm Lynn Fraser. I'm with the Killaby Center for Recovery, and I'm here today with Dr. Kenneth Blum, one of the pioneers in addiction and discovering the gene for addiction, and we're going to have a really fascinating conversation with him today. Dr. Blum, would you like to introduce yourself and in particular how it relates to addiction?
Okay, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here talking to all these wonderful people that are trying to do great things in the world of addiction, especially recovery. I'm actually born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My schooling included Columbia University, where I got a bachelor's degree in pharmacy. Went to Seton Hall College of Medicine. After that, for graduate school, received a master's degree in medical science. I got a PhD in neuropharmacology at New York Medical College. I actually was the first graduate of the program. It was 1967. So I've been around for a pretty long time. I don't have a interesting story to tell about my addictions. Although when I was a kid growing up, I loved music, and every once in a while, maybe a little marijuana, but nothing, and maybe drank a little bit too much. But just about everybody did that. So I'm not in recovery, and therefore I don't have the same emotional mentality of the people that have been to recovery. So what I say is more of an academic approach rather than a more sincere, underlying emotional connection to recovery. However, I can say this much: I've been in the field for 50 years or more, and of course I've met a whole lot of people in recovery, and I did some interesting internships. For example, one of them was at the Downstate Medical Center, where I actually was on a hospital floor involving serious alcoholics. So I've seen people going through withdrawal and looking at snakes and a whole bunch of stuff. So in that regard, I can say I have a little bit of that experience. I also worked at the Haight-Ashbury Medical Free Clinic with David Smith for some time, and that gave me a whole view of the psychedelic world and that part of the world. So actually, I received the Career Teacher Award from the National Institute of Alcoholism and the National Institute of Drug Abuse. And it's very interesting because that allowed me to actually spend a year, 6 months in California, 6 months in New York. And it allowed me to see firsthand what was going on in the world of addiction. From the New York perspective, it was involved with smack houses, and in those days it was heroin. I've seen a lot of that in some hospital settings and non-hospital settings. Sort of almost a little undercover work. And in San Francisco, I was involved in what we call the, in a sense, it's the rock and rollers for recovery that I have now. But it was the team that did rock medicine with David Smith, and we used to go to concerts, and the people were flipping out from acid. We had to take care of them. We had to talk down people. So in that perspective, I have a little bit of a clinical understanding of really what's going on. But academically, it all started, the field of addiction all started in 1968 when I was doing a postdoctoral fellowship in San Antonio, Texas, in the Southwest Institute of Biotechnology. I was with Irvin Geller, who actually was involved with the whole idea of psychopharmacology. So I did a lot of early work in the area of psychopharmacology. We were looking at Skinner boxes and all those interesting things with the animals, and behavior, learning behavior, and studying craving. So that sort of was the beginning of getting involved. I can say this, that when I went to Southwest Foundation, I was not interested in addiction per se, but I was interested in neurotransmitters in the brain and how the neurotransmitters could affect behavior. And this was a psychopharmacology lab, so they were very much involved in behavioral procedures to understand how certain behaviors were going on in terms of stress. And we did one of the first studies, how stress could affect alcohol intake in animals. But that led to some other very important work. What I'm trying to say is that I got addicted to the problem of alcoholism because I thought it became very interesting. In fact, when my chairman, Irvin Geller, said, Ken, we have to write a grant for alcoholism, okay? In 1968, it was the first time that the National Institutes of Alcoholism actually an institute that was giving out grants, okay? I said no.
Oh, is that right?
You know, alcoholism. I don't want to do alcoholism. It's a dead-end drug, you know what I mean? All it does is destroy the brain. There's no interest, you know? He said, well, either you do this or you're fired. So I thought, I'll write a grant. How stress induces alcohol intake, you know? And this was 68. Actually, one of the first experiments in 1967 was a guy by the name of Bob Myers who did some work to suggest that maybe stress can induce alcohol intake. Now that sounds kind of naive and kind of like, my God, of course stress causes alcohol. We know that for sure now, but in those days, we didn't know that even, okay? We had no real studies to prove that. Now I'm telling you this because this leads to a very interesting thing, and then I'll ask you, give me another question, but this leads to a very important thing. We did this work where we had these animals pressing a lever where they could get alcohol intake, just to drink, okay? Or even we had one that was just drinking alcohol compared to water in a tube. So at the end of about a couple months, we looked at the data. And I remember my chairman, Irvin Geller, calling me into the office. And he said, he says, Ken, what's going on here? And I said, what do you mean? He says, the animals only drink during the weekend. He said, they drink only. I said, my God, we got a great model for binge drinking for teenagers, you know? I said, he says, no, that's terrible. That's saying that we stress them all week and then on the weekend they're drinking. What is that all about? And I said, I don't understand. So it turns out that there was a man who received the Nobel Prize in Medicine. His name was Julius Axelrod. Mm-hmm. And Irv Geller worked with Julius Axelrod. And I had a chance to meet him at that time. This was in the late 60s. So we went to one of his talks in Atlantic City about circadian rhythm, okay? Light and dark cycles. And we got back, and unbeknownst to me, Irv Geller did an experiment they didn't tell me about. And then he called me in his office. And he says, look at this. And I said, what is it? And he says, I showed this tremendous drinking. I said, why are these drinking? He says, well, so let me tell you what I did. I took these rats and I put them in a dark closet. And as darkness. And the darkness induced drinking. I said, oh my God, so if you take a rat and you put him in a dark closet, you're going to have him drink alcohol. I said, that's right. And then he said to me, you're a pharmacologist. You tell me why. I said, so now you want me to tell you why they drink? He said, thanks a lot, you know? So I figured it all out. And I came back on a Monday. That was the weekend. And I said, I think I got the answer. I said, here's the problem. When it's at night, the serotonin in the brain, the chemical messenger, converts to another substance called melatonin. And melatonin induces drinking. So he says, well, my God, how can we prove that? I said, well, you have to buy melatonin. And then we'll give it to the animals during the light, okay? And they looked up the price. At that time, it was about $90 a gram. It was very expensive at that time, you know. It was in the 60s. And he says, you better be right. So that's my guess. So we got the melatonin, and we started injecting the melatonin to animals in the daytime. And guess what? They drank like crazy. Then what happened, long story short, I don't want to go into all the details. What we found out, because I went out to the medical school, we found out that if you remove the ganglia that connects to the pineal gland in the brain and the seat of the soul, then we can stop them from drinking. So the pineal gland, which makes the melatonin, you have to have that present. And then we did something really interesting. We took blind rats, congenitally blind rats, at birth, okay? And then when they grew up, we put them into the paradigm to drink alcohol. And guess what? They drank like crazy.
Wow.
Okay? So that started the whole world of darkness-induced drinking, and they use it today. That's one of the main paradigms in research to use to look at alcohol drinking. So then I fell in love with alcohol. Okay? And I said, oh, no, this is interesting. And I remember doing an interview on radio, and they said, because papers were published in Science and other papers and other good journals, and I remember they were doing an interview with me, and they said, well, Dr. Blum, says, well, so what could you take home from this exciting research? I said, well, to tell you the truth, is probably this you could take home. You know how people sometimes want to get away from the world, to get away from their family or whatever, do some bad things. They go to a bar. When it's dark, that's when they drink a lot. So that for some reason, the folklore had it. When you go to bars, they keep it dark.
Yeah.
You're drinking more. So that's the clinical support for what I was saying. So
Wow.
it's just a bar. But that's how I got started.
I can see why you were fascinated by that.
Yeah, it was very fascinating.
Yeah.
And by the way, you talk about fake news. I was in the Inquirer. They reported that in the Inquirer, and I said, well, at that time I said, well, that one's not fake.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's sort of how it began.
So can you just maybe say what was the prevailing thinking around alcohol at that time, and what have you seen through the years? Because now there's and drugs as well. There's the war on drugs. It's criminal. There's all the stigma, and
Right.
now it seems to be shifting more to a medical. We need treatment.
Right.
So what's your view of that over the last 50 years?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. In those days, you had to remember that people were not even going really, they weren't making a big deal about AA. It was AA, you know what I mean? And the Hazleton model was just starting out. And Anderson, I don't know if you know Anderson, but he was one of the first guys that said, let's get counselors. And let's make recovering people and make them counselors so they can talk with recovering people. So the idea of recovery was just sort of beginning, okay? Mm-hmm. And if you remember, the treatment programs were not actually even talking much about AA. Some were, but in the 70s, that was not even a major deal. So the early days were basically people. There was stigma, great stigma in terms of alcoholism, especially, by the way, for women. Women would be real scared to ever say that they're drinking too much. Okay, the
Right.
male is almost like a macho alpha thing. You know what I mean? Hey, I drink my beer, and I have my whiskey, and I go out of house, all that stuff. So for them, and if you're drinking, you never would think that would be even considered alcoholism. In other words, you just think that that's a normal culture. Alcohol is legal, so hey, what's the big deal? I'm doing something legal, and so I get drunk, I beat my kids once in a while, I rape my daughter. What's the big deal? You know what I mean? And that is sort of what the mentality was from the 60s to the mid-70s, to the mid-70s. I remember in 1978, I founded with Ernie Noble, who was the past, he was one of the directors of the National Institutes of Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse. We founded the first one called the Gordon Research Conference on Alcoholism. And in those particular days, we had scientists from all over the world. We had Albert Carlson, who got the Nobel Prize for dopamine in 2000. We had some very, very powerful speakers. But in the evening, I thought it was a great thing to do is to hold a party and to bring in alcohol and have everybody just relax, drink alcohol and have fun. And I mean a lot of alcohol, okay? Well, in 1982, I was the chairman again because I did a good job. And that's sort of, and I did it again. And this time we started to invite some people from the National Institutes of Alcoholism to give talks, okay? And again, we had parties at night with alcohol. This is like 1982. Well, one of the people from the National Institutes of Alcoholism came over to me and said, Ken, you can't have these alcohol parties. This is an alcohol conference. I said, what? What do you mean I can't? He says, my God, the people are in 12 steps now. People are recovering. People are doing AA, they're doing NA, whatever. And you can't do that. I said, really? so it hit me. The age of the 12 steps have emerged. In the 80s, I would say that's when we moved from almost a non-model, okay, a non-treatment for alcoholism to the real model of treating alcoholism with the 12 steps. Now, to move the next step over. Then what happens is that, if you remember, the AA people would not want you to take any drugs, nothing for your mental illness, nothing for depression, nothing for schizophrenia, nothing for anxiety, no drugs, okay? I remember going to New York and sitting there, it was in the 80s, and sitting down with the director, the executive director of the AA in New York, okay? And I was at that time talking about promoting, which I'll talk about a lot today, what I call a pro-dopamine regulator, the natural nutraceutical that we think really helps the brain to heal the low dopamine in the brain. And I wanted them, I didn't even know that AA can't endorse anything, and I wanted them to endorse it. And it threw me out of the office, basically, They said, no, Dr. Blum, we're not interested, we don't endorse anything. I said, okay. So what I'm saying is that those days, they didn't like the idea that people would take the drugs. And there's some of it today. There's still some really hardcore AA people that says no drugs, okay? So as time went on, obviously in the 90s and especially the 2000s, what we got into is the FDA medical assisted treatment world, which I like to talk about today a lot. But that is sort of the history of where we went. And then the stigma went down. Now, I could talk about stigma just for a little bit, okay?
Yes.
The stigma is very interesting because in 1990, when Ernie Noble and I published in JAMA, the first gene to associate with alcoholism, which is called, by the way, the dopamine D2 receptor gene. Okay, when we discovered that, the JAMA made a big deal about it. Okay, there's a long story to that. So it says the stigma, and what the stigma was like in 1990, Gallup did a survey and found out that 56% of the American public still thought that alcoholism was a moral issue. It was nothing to do with biology. It was just simply moral problem, stigma. When we did the study, that's the first time it switched. It switched to where over 50%, the majority, now believe that alcoholism could be connected to genetics and biology. So I think that in my view, okay, if anything, whether the study was correct or wrong, the view was that at least it got people to think that this is not just simply say no. I got nothing against Nancy, okay?
Right.
Great. I got nothing against her. But you can't just say no. And those people that are in recovery and are struggling and in white knuckle recovery are trying their best to say no. But it's not so simple.
Right. It's not simple. Yeah.
Huh?
Yes, it's not simple. Yeah.
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 So anyway, that's what that is at that point.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so one of the things you said was the kind of hard line against taking any kind of drugs to help with mental illness.
Say that again?
One of the things you referred to was not taking any drugs, even if you're schizophrenic.
Oh, you mean AA?
Yeah, and there are some people that.
Well, I went through that and I talked to a lot of people, and I met a lot of people in AA, and at that time, the idea was that if you're coming off of a drug, say like alcohol, then you can't fix it with a drug. Okay, you got to fix it. You got to fix it with your will. Okay, so to speak. You got to fix it to being strong and saying no. Even though you're schizophrenic and you're hallucinating, you still got to fix it. All right? Or you have such depression, you want to commit suicide, you still got to fix it. Okay? So the view is that that's not the way to go. Now, in all due respect for AA, and I got tremendous respect for AA and NA, I got tremendous respect for self-help programs. The fellowship is fantastic, okay? And that's very important, supportive. And that goes beyond sometimes, it's all part of biology because if you meditate, you can release dopamine, and you give positive thoughts like mindfulness, you can release dopamine. So that support system is very important, okay? So in saying that, I got great respect. But you know, from years ago, when you went to AA meetings, they had the coffee, they had the soda, and they had the candy and the cake. Well, all you're doing is getting glucose, okay? Or you're getting something that's stimulating dopamine from caffeine. You know, I wrote a paper, actually I wrote a book. It's called The Molecular, what is it called? The Neurobiology and Molecular Mechanisms of the 12 Steps. It's a book that's put out by Springer. People might want to look at it. It's by Kenneth Blum. It's the 12 Steps. It's just the Kenneth Blum 12 Steps. And what I did is I went through every single step in the 12 steps and explained the neurobiology of what was going on in every step. You might like to read it yourself. And it's just the Kenneth Blum 12 steps. Very important. And it explains each step, okay? And why some steps are more difficult than others, and why the therapist has to be a little careful about getting people to get to that point. And I mean, it takes a lot of patience. So that's a very important thing that I thought that the viewers would be interested in looking at. Mm-hmm. So the idea that you were going to solve alcoholism, okay, by not using any drugs at that time was kind of the sweet spot. That was kind of what people were talking about. In this book, I talk about Bill Wilson, okay? And I talk about the fact that, hey guys, yes, because he was a raging alcoholic, Dr. Bob, and they went to Oxford and they came up with this great adaptation called the 12 Steps, which is great. And the Blue book is great, okay? But they always talked about it being an analogy, if you remember reading it. Mm-hmm. An analogy that some people could and some people can't, okay? And drink alcohol safely. And the thing that struck me was that you remember he was a smoker. He smoked nicotine. Okay, he smoked nicotine, and he also liked candy. And he, in my opinion, some of his recovery, I don't want to take anything away from AA, but some of his recovery was that he was getting into nicotine.
Right.
He was releasing his dopamine. If you took away nicotine, God knows what would happen to Bill. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So in the book, I talk about that because he died from emphysema. So these are very important little subtle things that are going on and just people to think about. You know what I mean? So if you think about it, as we're in the new world right now, where medication assisted treatment is the standard, and start talking about how important that is, okay? That came from a long, slow rise to get people to realize that, first of all, addiction is a biological link. That's important to understand. And that's why we got into where we are in terms of medication assisted treatment. And AA is now, as you know, a little calming, realizing that you can help people with AA, but you can also have them on some of the medication assisted treatments. And we're going to get into it because I don't believe in some of the medication assisted treatments. I'm not a favor of some of
What do you believe helps and what doesn't help?
that. That's a big question, huh?
That is.
People don't have to take it from me, you know. I have my
Well, you're
own.
a scientist.
I have my own ideas. Okay. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to some of my research, way back,
Mhm.
about the 70s. So in 1970, there was a group in Houston, okay, and they came out with an experiment they published in Science. It's Virginia Davis and Michael Walsh. And what they were basically stating was when you drink alcohol, you make a substance in the brain that actually looks like an opiate, okay? And that substance is called tetrahydroisoquinone. It's called a TIQ. And that substance is what they thought was a culprit in causing people to stay in the mode of drinking. It's a biological phenomenon, okay? When I saw that, I said to myself, if that's the case, then the junkie, I had to use the word junkie, excuse me, in the street trying to get a heroin fix is no different neurochemically from the executive who's slushing down 5 martinis at lunch talking to somebody. Same. They're the same. Only one got money, one needs money. Okay? So there's a is not only that is social economic, but the chemistry of the brain is the same. So I said, if that's the case, then I should be able to take the narcotic antagonist called naloxone, okay, and I should be able to give it to animals before they get drunk from alcohol, and I should block the effects of alcohol. I mean, use sleeping, use inject saline and alcohol and mice go to sleep. And this time we use naloxone and then alcohol, the mice didn't go to sleep. It prevented them going to sleep. Now, that was the first time that anyone actually ever thought that you could take a narcotic antagonist and block the effects of alcohol. And that opened up a wide idea that there was a common mechanism between alcohol and opiates. And I edited a book in 1978 called Alcohol and Opiates. And the idea was that naloxone may have value in treating alcoholics. Okay? Now, I presented all of this, many meetings. I presented it to the traffic committees, saying that maybe we got in naloxone. And some of the best scientists in the world, and I don't want to tell their names right now, said I was crazy. So you can't do this, it's not going to work, blah, 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 blah. And sure enough, what do we have on the market?
All right.
Vivitrol. Okay? So Vivitrol is basically basically a variant of naloxone, right? And it's a narcotic antagonist. And the idea is that this narcotic antagonist works because it blocks these receptors. And these receptors, when I talked about this, we didn't even know there was an opiate receptor. An opiate receptor came about in 1972 when Saul Snyder and Candice Penn came out and published the first study on the opiate receptor. That was way back when, right? Then I published this paper in the 70s, before 1972. And they said there must be a receptor for alcohol. Well, little do we know is basically the opiate receptors. Now there's 4 or 5 opiate receptors, but the one that's important is called the mu opiate receptor. And that's where morphine and heroin works. There's a delta receptor that is where the natural opioid peptides called endorphins work. There's enkephalins, endorphins. So now Laxo kind of affected both sides, the delta receptor and the mu opioid receptor, which means it blocked out some of the effects of the natural opioids in the brain. Now, Trexin primarily is a mu receptor blocker, leaving the natural receptors to work. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get too complicated, but the thing is that Vivitrol is supposed to be useful in preventing people from drinking, because if you drink, or by the way, of course, for opiates, but if you drink or use opiates by blocking the mu receptor, what happens is that the dopamine is at the end of the reward cycle, okay, doesn't get released. So you can't get the high from the dopamine because it's being blocked. It's not being released. And what that is all about, in my opinion, is what we call extinction. Extinction comes from the psychological terminology, which means that you stop something because you don't feel it anymore.
Right.
Why use it?
Right.
That's where the Vivitrol idea came from the original work all the way up to what they're doing now. Okay. So over the years, I have not been in favor of that being the major standard to treat addiction. Okay. Okay. And that I still have that feeling. Okay. Now, what else do we have in the meds? Well, we have buprenorphine. Okay. And we have buprenorphine mixed with naloxone at a 4-to-1 ratio. And the only reason why you got naloxone there is so that people take the Suboxone and they want to use it to crush it up and shoot it and get high. It blocks them from feeling that they're going to get high. Okay, that's the main reason why naloxone is the buprenorphine. So you got something called Suboxone, Subsol. Okay, there's another form of it. There's other forms. Now you got injectables. You got long-lasting naltrexone. You got a whole bunch of stuff going on now. Okay.
Right.
The problem with using, say, Suboxone, I use that as not as a generic, as a trade name, but I'm really thinking about the generic, the buprenorphine naloxone combinations, is this, that buprenorphine is what we call a partial mu agonist. All that means, if you get higher doses, you become a full agonist, okay? The thing about this is that when people use buprenorphine, naloxone, in a sense, they're being locked into addiction, okay? Now, I published a paper in substance use and misuse, where I talked about the governmental restrictions on the buprenorphine naloxone, okay? It went from 100 to 200. When I published it into another journal, when I tried to publish it in another journal, it was accepted. But they're going to have an open letter, but people are going to write in stuff about paper. And because I said that buprenorphine naloxone causes addiction and locks people in addiction, people have argued and said, "What are you talking about, Dr. Blum? That's not what it does. It's a treatment for addiction." Well, you remember I said that AA didn't like the fact they take a one pill to deal with another pill or one drug. Well, that's exactly the same thing. In other words, I mean, what we have now is people that are locked in to addiction, buprenorphine and naloxone. Okay, now we have done a study that we published in a journal called Plus One, where I worked with people from MIT in Montreal, and they developed by phone called the True Ground lie detector, where people can talk on the phone and you can determine whether they're lying or not lying. Okay, and we found that long-term people, that long-term use of the buprenorphine, naloxone, brings about a flat effect, an affect, so that they really are not feeling that great over time, okay? And their affect is really down. When we publish it, and that affect is worse than people that are going into the general population or people that are in AA, okay? That are not using it, okay? So we've argued that buprenorphine and naloxone, which, by the way, is the gold standard right now for the MIT, right? Along with Vivitrol, I mean, and methadone, which is there forever. But that is not the way to achieve true recovery, okay? That is a way in which we safeguard that the people get out of this addiction world, okay? Get back to work and don't feel very well relevant, okay? Because I get calls all the time, I get letters, I get emails. Dr. Blum, can you get me off of my buprenorphine and naloxone all the time, okay? So that, in my opinion, should be a short-term goal, okay? And it should not be used for the long term. Now, we are living in the worst, the second, the third opiate epidemic in America right now. We know that. That's why you got this great program going on, because you're trying to solve how are we going to stop 100 people or more dying every day? How are we going to stop every 17 minutes one person dies? Okay? Every 17 minutes in the United States. How are we going to stop 297 prescriptions for Oxycontin? Okay? In 2016 alone. What are we going to do about all this? Life expectancy is going down in America because of the opioid crisis, okay? So I'm here to say that we are doing it wrong. We are doing it wrong, okay? And if people don't start catching on, this world, we're going to be in even more trouble, okay? Because all the politicians are talking about it, okay? Everyone has got a plan. Obamacare came up with $1 billion for 2 years in terms of research and trying to find out what's going on with the opiate world. Okay? That's $500 million a year for 2 years. Okay, it's significant. It's good. Okay, what can we do? Okay, anti-abuse was used forever. For alcohol, even many years ago, and people learned how to drink through. They came out of treatment, they went to a bar, they drank right to the antidotes. So let's face it, that's not the answer, okay?
Right.
So, and all these other ones that they talk about, tropamate, and some of the other ones, compensate, they're all working on the wrong side of the equation, okay? Because what is going on is that when the pharmaceutical companies look at this world of drug addiction, alcohol, drugs, opiates, whatever, they said, well, wait a minute. There's a guy by the name of Mark Gold, who, by the way, is my dear friend that I work with, is my chairman at one time. Why don't we use chromocriptine? It's a powerful D2 agonist. If you believe that maybe genetically there's low dopamine, why don't we just use a powerful dopamine D2 receptor agonist and we solve the world? Give them L-Dopa, like you give them Parkinson, and get rigidity. But at least they're like that, and they can't pick up a drink or they can't drive. Why don't we just do that? And it was shown not too long after Gold was talking about Roman cryptic for cocaine, that in the brain, what happened is that if you use this dopamine D2 stimulator constantly, it would tell the brain to shut down more dopamine D2 receptors. And then you got a low dopamine D2 receptors, and now it's not working anymore. Okay, so you can't just use a dopamine agonist powerful to shut down the dopamine system, and that is something you can't do. So when the drug companies or big pharma looked at this, they said, "My God, we can't use any of these powerful dopamine agonists." And by the way, they got a whole lot of them. That's not going to work. So how in the world are we going to get into this multi-billion-dollar industry? We got a lot of sick people. We got a lot of alcoholics. We got 22 million people out there, definitely alcoholics. The treatment field is full of cocaine addicts. There's no really treatment. We got to come up with something to treat addiction. How are we going to do it? Well, the way they decided to do it, they said, we're not going to hit dopamine because that's too difficult. We are going to stop the function of dopamine. We're going to block it. And we're going to go for extinction. And some of these drugs that you see coming out, people are playing with tropamine, ketamine, even compensate. What happens is that at the end of the day, the dopamine that is needed to be released in the right amount every single moment to make you feel good, you block. Because the pharmaceutical companies realize they can block dopamine that way. And by taking drugs and alcohol, you don't feel the high, you get extinction. And that's where the maths are all about. Extinction, extinction, extinction. But what are you doing for the human being? What are you doing for his quality of life? What are you doing for recovery? What is recovery? That's another question. What is recovery? Well, recovery has a lot of meanings for a lot of people, right? That's why you ask the question, what is recovery? Recovery to hardcore AA is complete abstinence.
Right.
That's it. You're finished. No more drugs, no alcohol. And some people could get through that program and they do it and they're okay. They have other issues. You go to AA meetings, you get people crying. I've been to many AA meetings. I give talks at AA meetings, and not because I'm recovering, but I go with people. And you hear all these terrible issues, especially from people just starting out, trying to get through in their life. And they get the 1 month trip and they're as happy as they can be. And I don't blame them, I should be. But I got people 28 years, 9, 30, 40 years in recovery. And they seem to do all right. Now, what I'm going to say to you is the people that get through just by using AA alone, what is their genetic makeup? Are they predisposed to addiction? Do they really have epigenetics that prevent them from relapsing, okay, in a positive way? Or are the ones after 5 years that cannot choose do it with AA alone, what is their genetic makeup? Are they the ones that have a predisposition to addiction risk? And
Right.
these failures, are these the failures that we see in AA? No matter what you do, they fail. And they relapse and relapse and relapse. And of course, many people that went to AA say that they failed, but when they finally got the message of AA, they found a way to talk to the higher power. Because I'm not talking about spirituality, I'm not talking about religion. They made it. But I like to know what their genetic predispositions are about. So we have to take into consideration, right, what the genetic makeup is and how that relates to relapse, okay? And that becomes a whole new subject as recovery. So recovery to the AA, NA could be total abstinence. Recovery to endearing doctors clinicians, counselors, people that are in the know, is, hey, listen, if you relapse, that's not good, but we're not going to kill you because you relapse. It's a good thing you came back and talked to us. Thank you. We're going to try to help you again. Okay?
Right.
You know, and if someone says, well, you know, I only drink alcohol, you know, when I have a meal, and then I'm an alcoholic. Well, people say, are you out of your mind? That's going to lead, and it's going to escalate. And they say, no, I've been doing this for 2 years, and I don't escalate. You know what I mean? Now, there was years ago a whole group, it's still out there, Mallett's group, Seattle. There's a whole group that said we could develop controlled drinking. We could teach you how to drink. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Teach you how to drink. And when people heard about it, when they did studies, by the way, I don't know if you ever read my book. It's called what was it? One of my books is called Alcoholism, the alcohol and the addictive brain. Okay, in that particular book, we argued why controlled drinking don't work for many people. And in my opinion, it certainly don't work for people that are born with a high risk genetically for addictive tendencies, okay?
Right.
Now, in 1978, we developed a topography for explaining addiction. It's in the book. And what we said is that drug-seeking behavior, basically, is equal to what we call the phenotype, is equal to the, which is the phenotype, is equal to G plus B, which is genetics plus the environment. So your basic romance with drugs, either you can moderate it or you can't, okay? And that has to do with your genes plus the environment. So we talked about that the genetics in some people, which involves the neurotransmitters in the brain, because there's the brain reward system, okay? And they have neurotransmitters, okay? And I'll explain that to you before I go on with my statement, okay? In 1989, Joe Kozlowski from Southwestern Medical School and myself put together what we call the brain reward cascade. And we explained by doing mapping as to what was going on in the reward system of the brain to make you feel good. And I'm going to say what it is a simple cascade. In the hypothalamus in the brain, that's in your brain, right? Serotonin, when you stimulate that, it projects through its receptors, okay? And now it stimulates the release of the endorphins, called enkephalin. And the enkephalin projects out to opiate receptors into something we call the substantia nigra. And sitting in the substantia nigra is this well-known inhibitory neurotransmitter called GABA. And this GABA projects into another part of the brain called the rapamycin nuclei, which controls the release of glutamate, which is then linked into the ventral tegmental region in the brain, which drives the release of dopamine at the reward site called the nucleus accumbens. Sounds very complicated, but it really isn't. What we're saying to this is you got two brains to consider. One is a happy, normal brain. And that means that the serotonin, the endorphins, the GABA is releasing, and the glutamate is releasing just the right amount of dopamine. Now you feel good. The unhappy brain is where something goes wrong through that cascade, maybe genetically or environmentally, okay? And for example, if you get too much GABA, because you don't have a stop on the GABA to inhibit, because the endorphins are not there to help you inhibit the GABA. Now what happens is you got low dopamine release because the GABA stops the dopamine from being released. It's not normal. That's an unhappy brain. So when we look at it that way, when we look at the brain reward cascade logically, we now know work that has been done from Wilhelm and all kind of people in the neuroscience world to functional magnetic resonance imaging, okay, and to Nora Volker at NIDA, okay, we now know that when you have low dopamine function, that's when you start increasing the escalating cocaine intake, alcohol intake, heroin intake, glucose intake, gambling, sex addiction, shopaholics, hoarding, all of that. Okay, that's when we know is that it's not because you got too much dopamine. Okay, except if you're an adolescent, it goes the other way in the beginning, and then after 25, smooths out, and you get the right amount of the neurotransmitters, so that when you have low dopamine, that's when you start seeking out all these behaviors. Now, in 1995, you sort of get that?
Yeah, so it seems like we need dopamine to be happy.
Exactly.
And so we don't want to suppress
You don't want to
all
block it.
dopamine.
You don't want to block it.
Right.
That's what nuts do. Okay?
But then people get hooked on the dopamine from drugs or alcohol.
Well, here's what happens. Think about this. You have a neuron, and it's what we call a pre-neuron. It has a dopamine sitting there, right? Okay? And then you got a post-neuron, okay? Now, the way the world works is that dopamine gets released just the right amount, stimulates just the right amount of dopamine receptors, and you feel good.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you stop the release of dopamine, okay, these receptors are empty. Think about it, empty. There's no dopamine coming. Guess what happens? That can be going on if, for example, you're in a recovering alcoholic, all right? Now you got these receptors that are all anxious, ready, and they start going down after a while. It's not getting atrophy, but there's still enough going on, not enough dopamine around. If you say in recovery and you're not doing nothing with the brain, okay? Now all of a sudden you get stressed, and all of a sudden you're having pills, and you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's like super sensitive. You have to stop for a while. Now, that's why you tell people, my God, please be careful. You know, if you drink again, you might die because you might be overdoing it, okay?
Right.
So that's called super sensitivity. I have a paper called Deprivation Amplification Relapse Therapy called DART. You can look it up, DART. It explains all that mechanistically, okay? So that's very important. That's why you see death sometimes, okay? From the people that use after they stop drinking for a long time. And they don't, right? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the mechanism. So we're sitting in a situation where we want dopamine.
Right.
We may not like dopamine, we want it, okay? Because otherwise, we're not going to feel good. Now, like I said, the pre-neuron, post-neuron, alcohol releases dopamine. Cocaine releases dopamine. Heroin releases dopamine. Nicotine releases dopamine. Sugar releases dopamine, okay? Gambling releases dopamine. Sex releases dopamine. Hoarding releases dopamine. Shopping releases dopamine. Internet releases dopamine. Smartphones release dopamine, okay? So then what we have is called behavioral addictions, right?
Mm-hmm.
The new field. So in 1995, I was on a plane going to Kentucky, and I sat back and I said to myself, you know, Ken, what's really going on with this world of addiction? And this is after we even found Fish Genetic Association. What's really going on? Because I was going to alcohol meetings. I was going to opiate meetings. I was going to cocaine meetings. I was going to gamma meetings. I was going to dopamine meetings, serotonin meetings, depression meetings, all of these things, anhedonia meetings, all these meetings. But what was the connection between them? You can't look at serotonin by itself. Some people say, oh, serotonin is a thing that causes obsessive compulsion. No, it don't. well, endorphin well, you're gonna get high with endorphin. No, that's not true. It turns out at the end of the day, dopamine is the lowest common denominator of all of this, okay? And I gave a talk at Budapest, and a guy by the name of Mark Lewis came over to me, and after my talk, and he says, Ken, why do you keep saying dopamine, 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 dopamine? Why do you say that? There's got to be something more than dopamine. I said, Mark, I am not talking that there are not anything else but dopamine. I'm talking that there's a whole lot of things, hundreds of peptides, second messengers, all kind of things, calcium, all kind of things in the brain. But the end result is dopamine. Now you tell me what comes after dopamine, and I'll change my tune.
Right.
You can do it. You couldn't do it, and nobody could do it. Maybe in 100 years from now, we'll be looked at as being, I hate to use the word, idiotic, okay? Because there's many other things after dopamine. But right now, we got dopamine, okay? And why destroy what we got? Why don't we embrace it and love it? And why don't we try to make it homeostatic? Why don't we make it a balance? Let's balance dopamine. Don't block it. And he wrote, I didn't know that he was writing for Psychology Today. And he wrote a whole paper on what I was saying, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Bill is gone. And he said some things about me, but which is okay. But that's what we have to realize. We have to realize that no matter who you bring into this summit, who you bring, and I love the word radicalize. Radically is the word. I mean, whoever you bring into this process, and everybody has their own ideas, and everybody has their own sweet spots, and everybody has something to say. And who's right? Everybody's right, okay? Because at certain points in time, you need to block dopamine, maybe in the short term, to get people to stop, okay? But in the long term, no.
Right.
Maybe you need mindfulness. Maybe you need spotting behavior, okay? Maybe you need cognitive behavioral therapy, okay? Maybe you need meditation. Maybe you need yoga. Maybe you need better food, dopamine boosting foods for dinner, okay? Dopamine for dinner. There's all kinds of ways that in AA, when we have AA, we get positive thinking, we get fellowship. We start releasing oxytocin, giving bonding, okay? There's all kinds of things that are going on that we need to be happy and healthy, especially for those people that are genetically predisposed, right? We need to do something about that. We cannot just have them sit and idle. And the thing that I'm coming to is this. How could you say that you're going through a treatment program and all you get is AA, they talk to you about the disease, and they send you home, basically?
That does not have a very good success rate.
Okay, now, and some folks now are saying, oh, well, we're using the mass. And you know what I feel about some of those substances, okay? Locking people in addiction. So you have a situation where if you went to a heart doctor and they didn't give you digoxin and sent you home, you died from a heart attack. Well, here you could die from relapse because you're not doing anything to truly manipulate the brain so that we can get a normal, balanced release of dopamine that we call homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
And the scientists that are in the know all over the world are actually learning and trying to stabilize the dopamine. Albert Carlson, which was now, I don't know how old he is, 98, who got the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2000. That's what he's working on, okay? So, and we're working on that, of course. I'm not saying the Nobel Prize, but the thing is that this is all clearly a situation where we are going after the wrong target. We are trying to block the dopamine. We're trying to take away the dopamine instead of trying to get it so it's balanced. That's dopamine homeostasis. And that is what I think the new road for recovery is going to be, if you want to be successful. If we want to continue killing people, if we want to continue the opioid epidemic, if we want to sit back and think that the government, by preventing pre-existing conditions, by not giving enough money into the Medicare situation, if we think that Trump care is going to work, forget about it. And Chris Christie better listen to what I'm telling you, because we're going to end up with a higher epidemic problem. If you think that by going to the border and stopping the flow of heroin or any of these drugs is going to mean a difference, forget about it. That's not the case. It's actually cotton that's causing the opiate problem. It's Big Farm that's causing the problem. We got to stop that going. We got to start listening to the Center for Disease Control. 7 days, fraction. That's it. Don't use it anymore. My son had a tremendous accident, a bike racing accident, and they put him on fentanyl without him telling me. And 3 oxycontins a day. He stopped breathing, and he knew enough. And he threw the patch on him and saved his life. What are we doing? That's why we're killing people.
Yeah.
So we need to find a different approach to the opioid problem, okay? And to all the drugs and alcohol and everything else. So my key is homeostasis, okay? So what is that? So
and how do you get there?
huh?
And how do you get there?
Well, that's what this is all about, right?
Yes, yeah.
At least you're interested enough to find out why, right?
I'm fascinated by this. I'm kind of a geek.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that in 1990, when Ernie Noble and our associates found the first gene to associate with alcoholism, which turns out, by the way, after great controversy, to be correct, as one gene very involved in all addictions, okay? Now, what I didn't tell you is when I was on a plane in going to Kentucky, I said to me, what is all of these separate, meetings and separation? It's a culmination. I came up with the term reward deficiency syndrome. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
You have. Okay. Because now, by the way, it's now in SAGE Encyclopedia as a recognized disorder in the Encyclopedia for Abnormal Psychology, 2017. Okay?
Wow.
It's a recognized disorder. And we came up with it on a plane, and they said, this is crazy. We got to come up with an umbrella term.
Right.
It explains the brain and why we're doing these crazy things. And I said, well, that's reward. That's reward. We all want to feel good. It's
Right.
reward. Okay? Well, then I said, is it too much reward? Is it too little reward? And then I started thinking about AIDS, autoimmune deficiency syndrome. It's 1995. So what I said, reward deficiency syndrome. Okay? And that's why I came up with that. In 1996, we published it in 2 journals, Functionalology, and we published it in the Royal Society of Medicine in England. Okay? And that established the idea of reward deficiency syndrome. And over the years, on that alone, there's hundreds of papers now in PubMed. And the reward deficiency, we've got almost 600 papers already, not just for me, from all over the world. So the reward deficiency syndrome is indeed something we're talking about. And what we mean is this, that the risk for any one of these addictions, substance and non-substance, which I explained, release dopamine,
Right.
is caused by genetics or the environment.
Right.
And remember I said P equals G plus E.
Plus E, yeah.
So the G is one thing and the E is the epigenetics. Now I am going to say something about epigenetics before I get back to the genetics.
Okay.
Epigenetics over the last 10 years in the world of science has become the #1 research thing to do for the field of addiction. And what it means is, I don't know if your other people will understand it, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can. Okay? You got DNA. Above the DNA, you got a structure called chromatin. Popping out of this chromatin are these sugar molecules called histones. Okay? Now, epigenetics can do two things from the environment, depending on the environment. If it's a negative environment, if you abuse your kids, let's say, you're going to get methylation onto these histones. Whenever you get methylation, no matter what gene you're touching, these genes that I told you across the reward system, you're going to get a reduction of expression. It's going to block the expression of genes that you need to feel good. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you get positive, you get love, you're going to get what we call acetylation. It's the inhibition of the acetylation. You get acetylation. Okay? This opens up gene expression. They now know it, that this effect doesn't change the DNA, but from generation to generation, you can actually see the epigenetic effects stay up to 2 generations through the male, going, sperm-wise. So what we're saying is this: say you abuse your kids through this environment impact, you're getting methylation, maybe to stop the dopamine D2 receptor gene from working. You're getting low dopamine receptors, low dopamine function. This is one example. And now the next generation is abusing their kids. So abuse to abuse to abuse to abuse. Okay? On the other hand, if you give love and caring, you could have somebody with this genetic failure of the dopamine system, for example. You put a mentor in the way, it's known that to carry the dopamine D2A1 allele, these people don't go on to higher education. Kind of weird. A lot of them. But if you put a mentor in between and give love, then you prevent the expression of that going on. The expression of low dopamine, you get more dopamine made. Same thing with a fat gene. If you give exercise, you can overcome the expression of the fat genes in the right direction. So your environment has a tremendous effect onto not your DNA, but onto your messenger RNA, onto the expression of genes. So the model in the world of epigenetics now is, guess what? Love your pups. Love your pups. And even people that are in heavy, addicted families, alcoholism is taking hold. So, and there's a lot of bad stuff going on. If love could come about somehow, the next generation may be better off. Not to say though, no, not to say that if the genes are normal, that next generation can be okay. You know what I'm trying to say? If you don't have a genetic problem, it's in the environment. Now, that is why spirituality can be very important. That's why AA can be very important. Okay?
Right.
Okay, and that's why that's a good thing. Okay, so that can help from the environment. That's why meditation is a good thing. When you meditate, you release dopamine on 65% above normal. Okay, the only time that you release dopamine that high is, guess what? When you're stressed, it goes up 100 times because it tries to block the stress from norepinephrine. So meditation is good. Yoga is important. Okay?
Right.
All these things release dopamine. You get it?
Coming back to homeostasis.
Mindfulness, mindfulness. All these things do wonderful things to get your dopamine going. Okay? They're all part of the puzzle. Okay?
Right.
That is an epigenetic phenomenon. All these things that people are trying to do: trauma therapy, brain spotting, mindfulness, spirituality, AA, okay, cognitive behavior therapy, meditation, yoga, dopamine foods, okay? That's all epigenetic. On the other hand, you gotta deal with the genetics. And that's where these things, that's where some of the problems really lie. The dopamine D2 receptor, A1 allele, that is the form of the receptor that we discovered to associate first with alcoholism, and then all the other genes came, all the other drugs and behaviors keep coming out, all reward deficiency syndrome, okay?
Right.
And what happens is that if you carry the DRD2A1 allele, guess what? You're born with 30 to 40% less D2 receptors in your brain.
Hmm.
You're born with that deficit, okay? How do you think you're gonna feel when you're growing up? There's like an itch, you can't get rid of it. I go, wow, I feel normal. I feel normal. What is this? God, so the self-medication, the idea that people are using these drugs to self-medicate, in a sense, all working to the dopaminergic pathway that way, okay? In my opinion, okay? Now, you can stop along the way and say, oh, it's opiates or serotonin or endorphins. God, no, it's working through the dopamine system. What we found in 1991, when we published this in JAMA Psychiatry, it used to be called the Archives Journal Psychiatry, was that if you carry the A1 form of that DRD2 gene, you got 30 to 40% less D2 receptors in the brain. If you got 2 copies, it's worse. 1 copy, and the no copy is normal. So they have the A2 allele, so-called normal. Now, why is that? Where did this come from?
Right.
Because I'm saying to you that 1/3 or 100 million people in the United States alone carries the A1 form of the DRD2 gene. 100 million people. That's a lot of people to have a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that might be because this particular form, when you got low dopamine receptors, may have been a survival gene because you're more competitive, hunting, gathering, you're not so noble, and you're winning the war. Okay? Guess what? I did a little study showing how I went on left. So, I'm doing some, I want to do some on serial killers. Not to say that that's what's going on, but remember that there may have been an evolutionary situation where the old allele was the DRD2A1 allele, and that was where it was a much higher prevalence. Now, we live in a more modern society, and we're eating fish like omegas, and that increases D2 receptors and whatever, and we're getting more normalized, okay? And all of a sudden, we get an adaptation, where the DRD2A1 now is converted to DRD2A2, and now 70% of American, for example, has the A2, which is the normal, and 30% is abnormal. And when we say abnormal, is it abnormal, or is that really normal for humans? That's the question, okay? So what's normal, okay? And there's an idea, David Cummings, my friend, who's a geneticist, has a book called The Gene Bomb, who explains that as time goes on, more people are dropping out because they got the A1 allele, they're marrying earlier, and the D2A1 allele is increasing. And we have more problems with drug addiction.
Okay, so did you ever do a study on the people with the gene compared to the people who go through and have long-term recovery from addiction?
Well, we never actually did that long time ago. That's the whole point that I said that's something we really need to do. Not just that gene, but what we developed since 1990, after 20-something years, we developed what we call a genetic addiction risk score. Okay, it's called GARS. Okay, and that test, which will be available probably the fall of 2017.
Wow.
Just think about this. You're in a pain clinic, okay? And you don't know what these people's brain looks like. And you're gonna give this person that has pain Oxycontin. And now you're gonna hook on drugs for the rest of his life, God knows. Because they carry multiple genes across the brain reward cascade that leads to low dopamine, okay? It can be serotonin, it can be GABA, it can be whatever. And they end up with low dopamine function. And now you're giving Oxycontin, and bingo, You just hit a sweet spot, and now this person really starts really wanting, oh, I need more. The pain is not working. Doc, give me more, give me more, give me more. And then they don't get more, they get heroin, and they die. So that is what the focus is about. So if we had a test called GARS, right? In the pain clinics, do the test, don't put them on heavy drugs like that. Put them on NSAIDs, use electrophysiology like an H-wave device, or TENS, or something that's going to take care of pain in another direction. That's not addicting. That is important, right?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
that's huge.
now what about when you go into addiction clinics? All of a sudden, these people relapse 4 or 5 times. Is it the treatment center that they're going to? Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe they just don't do nothing for the brain. Okay? But would it be nice to know when you do that genealogy? I don't know if you do it on your treatments, but a lot of people do a genealogy to see if they got family history of alcoholism, for example. Well, this is going to tell you what that story is. It's not just going to tell you that you have a genetic risk. It's going to point out what genes are in trouble. Of course, the brain reward cascade, because we look at the dopamine D1 receptor, D2 receptor, D3 receptor, D4 receptor. We look at the dopamine transporter receptor system. We look at the serotonin transporter system. We look at GABA receptor. We look at the opiate receptor. We look at catecholmethyltransferase, which destroys dopamine in the synapse. We look at MAOA, which destroys dopamine in the mitochondria. And then we have these 10 genes, and we look at these, what we call polymorphisms or risk areas. We just count them. And we can determine, and we've done a study which we're submitting to +1 that we did with the University of Colorado in Boulder, where we had 393 people. And then we had 273 people take the addiction severity index. And we were able to predict by having, if you have 7 of these alleles, we predicted alcohol severity. If you got 4, only 4, we predicted drug severity. Okay? So by doing this test, we can predict severity to a clinical outcome for addiction severity index. That's the GARS. That is going to be launched in 2017 from a company called Genos, Geneus Health. Genos, like genius. Genius.
Right, yeah.
So and I'm going to give you that website when that comes around.
Yeah, we'll put the link on here.
Yeah. Okay. So now it's exciting that we have a way of predicting genetics. And by the way, there's another company out there called Truth that was the guy was my CEO of company, and he's just bad news guy, and he's now investigated by the FBI, and he put something out that's not correct anyway. He didn't even do it right. But anyway, this is going to be a very nice test. Okay? What do we do with this test? So it's one thing to say, hey, we can remove guilt, we can remove denial, we can understand relapse, we can understand even medication-assisted treatment, as we look at what receptors are being affected, so opiates, buprenorphine. We can look at metabolism, because we do the P450 with it, pharmacogenetics. But that is not the solution. That gives you information, but that does not really change the landscape to the point of what can we do in the future. Okay, now bear with me, because this is something that I suggested in 1 or 2 of my papers. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. Okay, and I suggested it. So what if there was a way in which we can naturally change the brain epigenetically to something that is safe, no side effects, and can bring about dopamine balance? What happens if you had something like that?
That would be amazing.
Okay. In 1976, I started to do a study that I published later on because I put a patent out. What I was trying to say is this. I did a lot of studies in the 70s to point out that the endorphins in your brain, it's called enkephalin, if it's low, you're going to drink more. And we looked at these genetically bred mice okay? And we found out the ones that hate alcohol have high endorphins.
Right.
That love alcohol have low endorphins. And we showed that we can raise the level of the endorphins and we can knock out drinking. And we looked at a substance that in 1933, it was known, okay, that this substance was a substance that could block an enzyme called carboxypeptidase. It's a big word. These endorphins are peptides. The caffeinase type peptides. The caffeinase is an enzyme which chops up the peptides. It's not working anymore. So if I could keep that peptide intact, would I reduce drinking in a genetically bad mouse that have low endorphins like the C57 block mouse? And they did it, and they published it. After 18 days on a substance called D-phenylalanine, okay, which blocks that enzyme, because we measured the endorphins goes up in the brain, the drinking goes down, and the drink goes really down. It converts, we call it pharmacogenetic conversion. We convert a genetically bred mouse that loves alcohol to an animal that hates alcohol. It's called DBA, that have high endorphin levels. It actually converted it, okay? One to the other by using this substance. So in 1982, I decided that it's not just the endorphins, okay? It's cascade, okay? But I didn't know what the cascade was because I didn't publish it on that yet. But I said, you know what? There must be these neurotransmitters in the brain. And I said, why don't we use amino acids that are precursors to these neurotransmitters very selectively? And then maybe I could get a balancing in the brain, right? And I had one alcoholic male, and I used this amino acids on him. He got help. And then there was this female alcoholic who was a very serious alcoholic. And we gave it, we stopped changing the formulas. We gave it to her, also in 1982. And one day she woke up, and her husband was with her in bed, and she says, "It's gone." He says, "What's gone?" He's looking, "What's gone?" The craving for alcohol is gone. So in 1984, through patents, we developed the first amino acid therapeutic approach. And we saved, I don't know if you remember, it was saved, tropamine, and Princal. This is in the early 80s. We had 1,000 treatment centers using this. Until the government, to the FDA, came down and said, you can't do this because tryptophan has killed 35 people. It's based on an erroneous idea of eosinophil amalgam, which only effective because of a batch. And then it went down. Now, we have been developing over the last 30, 40 years. I have a paper called 50 Years in Development of this natural amino acid therapy. And what we have now probably close to 35 studies, some double-blind placebo, clinical trials, a whole bunch of stuff. And I can give you certain links to go to at the end that they can look at. But we have a beautiful array of studies across, by the way, all of these reward deficiency syndrome behaviors. Okay, right. Everything from alcohol, cocaine, heroin. You got eating disorder problems, hoarding problems, cognition problems, sex addiction. We have studied all of this. And ADHD, autism, all of this. Okay, with this variation, many variations over the years. We're now about 35 studies. So okay, so I can tell you, when we look at the neuroimaging studies, let's say we take a heroin addict, protracted heroin addict that might have been on stopped 16 months ago in China, and we do imaging studies, we could show that 1 hour compared to placebo, we get a balance in the brain, the dopamine. We could see it. We did a study now with Dr. Febo at the University of Florida with rats. With 5 to 15 minutes, we do a scan. And we show that within that time span, we increase resting state functional connectivity, which means one part of the brain talks to the other part of the brain, talks to the other part of the brain. So, for example, the cingulate gyrus is your decision making. If that's not working, you're going to relapse. Then it connects to the hypothalamus to give you memory recall of something bad, and that stimulates and talks to the nucleus accumbens where the craving is starting. Okay, so we are trying to have these things talk together. Elliot Stein from NIDA has pushed the notion that it's resting state functional connectivity. If it's impaired, that's the cornerstone for addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like, gee, like look at Swiss cheese. Okay, if you have the genetic variations that I'm talking about, your brain got holes in it, like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
We give our stuff that becomes Mr. cheese. You can start healing it, okay? And that's what we're seeing. And we show beautifully that not only do we increase resting state function connectivity in naive rats, these are not addictive things, these are normal rats, we can increase the connectivity, okay? Make it even better. And we can increase what we call in connectivity volume, which means that we increase the activity of the neurons in the dopamine system. We make them work even better, okay?
Right.
And what we believe what we're doing is bringing it back balance. Because when we look at the functional magnetic resonance imaging scans, especially in the heroin addict, we can see that one side is reduced, the other side is increased. Beautiful.
Oh.
So we get balance, okay?
Yeah.
So not only are we increasing connectivity, that if you have the genetic propensity to addiction, you got holes in your brain and you're not doing well.
Yeah.
You get that fixed. You got to talk to each other. That's where relapse comes in.
Right.
So if we use this natural supplement that brings about balancing dopamine, okay, wouldn't that be better than blocking dopamine that the pharmaceuticals do with the MIT? Taking Vivitrol, knocking out the opiate receptors, or taking Suboxone, knocking out reward, and making you addicted, or methadone, okay?
Right.
No, that's not the way to go. Maybe short term, but not long term. So now we have a situation where we have done our homework. 35 studies, okay, published in peer-reviewed journals.
Right.
Something we call pro-dopamine regulation. It's KB220 and many variations, okay? And that is something that we're leaning on to say to the world, can we couple genetic testing with GARS, knowing what genes are in trouble, with not just a pro-dopamine regulator, but something that matches your brain, precision medicine. Because we could change the ingredients of these amino acids, these herbs, to fit whatever's going on in the brain.
Based on what's going on, yeah.
The polymorphism in the genes.
Wow.
And that's what we're saying is the true precision medicine for the future. And that's going to be available hopefully before the end of 2017.
Wow.
We're going to couple the GOS test, we
Yeah.
did it test, and now we changed the formula to fit your brain. Because I know how to change the formula to make it work in that direction. I'll give you an example. Let's say your serotonin transporter gene is polymorphic, it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
That means that it may be eating up serotonin too quick in the synapse because it brings the serotonin from the synapse back into the pre-neuron. You got a variation that is just eating up the serotonin. Well, you need more serotonin. Well, we can give more 5-hydroxytryptophan. I can take the mu receptor. We can look at that. You got polymorphism, but it's not working well. Well, you need to get the natural side working. You can raise the endorphin levels or use the deep phenylalanine, which raises the endorphins in the brain. Boom, 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 boom. So
wow.
It's fortuitous that we came up with that, not knowing at all where this was going. And now today, I can finally see why we did what we did. Because
Wow.
we think is true, genetically, DNA coupled with the pro-dopamine regulation for precision personalized medicine to prevent relapse. And it's safe. And we're saying when a kid is born, do the GOS test. And
Right.
then as they grow, you can slowly give them these amino acids, which definitely is not going to affect them to the point where it's going to hurt them. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's what we're suggesting for pediatric world to look at. And we feel that by the time they reach a certain age, okay, what's going to happen is that even the ADHD or whatever, where they have the ability to seek out drugs, if they have their brain balanced, they wouldn't need drugs and alcohol, okay? And they wouldn't be genetically inclined, okay? So this is epigenetic repair of reward deficiency syndrome, starting at birth. That's what we're talking about.
That's amazing.
Like that?
Yeah.
That is important. The problem is that who's listening to us? That's the problem. We're certainly not going to, the feds are not listening, okay? Although we put in a grant with Howard University to look at disparity in the African American community, where we're saying, take the gene, couple it with the pro-dopamine regulator, but guess what? I went to the NIH and we got a very, very high score. So it might be, there may be some change in thinking. And a lot of people are beginning to think about this because they feel that there is a chance. And I don't care if it's KB220Z, I just want, but you gotta start moving substances that are safe. Now, if you can fix the brain, help the brain, you get dopamine homeostasis, and you want to, now, if you're in AA, it reduces your stress, because studies show that this reduces your stress. You can listen more. It increases your learning, your cognition. You can hear things better. You can learn better.
Right.
Okay. You can, by the way, people that have certain genes can take God, and other people with certain genes cannot take God as a concept. They go against God. But you may be able to get spirituality, okay, working for you, or using mindfulness. All this is positive. No matter what, you're living in a world of stress.
Right.
So you keep that balance, okay?
Right.
Instead of blocking it. And that's what we think can help the opiate epidemic in America and the rest of the world. We're really trying to get people to understand.
Right.
The key is dopamine homeostasis,
Homeostasis.
not blocking dopamine. That's
Right.
what.
Well, and people need to enjoy their lives.
Yeah.
And if you're blocking.
Yeah. Now we're gonna have a website up, 2 websites, and we'll get that to you. One is just the substance without the genetics. One is going to be the genetics with the substance.
Okay, right. So, so these tests and all of the website and everything will be up sometime in the fall?
Yes. Yes.
And then with the result of that testing, then you could make a custom formulation for someone.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And then once people know what their risk is for certain things, then they would be able to keep that in mind. It's like when you go into emergency and you have a penicillin allergy, they don't give you penicillin.
Exactly.
Right. And so you wouldn't be getting
this could be part of your medical records.
Right.
Without a doubt. That's important.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up to.
And then the shame, the stigma, the moral failing, all that stuff just
starts going away.
Yeah.
Because you know better than me, because you're in the recovery world. When people go into a hospital, they end up at the same hospital, they're living in the same locale as where their father went or their mother went. You know what I mean? And you say to them, you know, your father died in this hospital, addiction. Oh, but I'm different, I can remember that. There goes your denial. Well, look at this. What about the families? What about all the families that got kids what they want to know, curiosity, to say, hey, this is your problem. You can't get away from this. This is real. Now, when this test comes up, we're talking to the FDA because they started approving 23andMe the same test. We're trying to get our test approved, RDS, so that we can sell it to the entire uh, America. You know.
Right. Right.
So people can get the benefit of it. You know.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that there's no other genes involved. I'm not saying that it's 100% trap, but it certainly gives us a lot more information that we have it that we don't have. We're getting into guessing.
Well, and why not use medical advances as much as we can? It doesn't make sense to not look at that.
You know, I was asked, because I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
And I was asked, what have you seen in the addiction world from the time you started to now? Okay?
Right.
I haven't really seen much that, except the fact that I think people are getting away from the stigma a little bit more.
Yeah.
Realizing they need help. I think that the utilization of AAs improved. The maths mean that the federal government is interested in trying to do something for people with addiction as a disorder, as a disease. I see great work coming out of NIDA, research, Noah Volker's people, Helen Garner, people out of NIDA, Jack Kelso, all these great people. I've seen some people beginning to realize that we're not doing the right thing. We need more than the maths. The maths has helped the idea of medical assisted treatment, which is a big change from where we were in the 60s, 70s, 80s. We're seeing that, but I can say that we're not. It was still in the middle of the forest. They haven't got out. And if we don't start looking at these important alternatives in medicine and start realizing that when you send the patient out of treatment, they got a naked brain. They still got their genetics. They go back to the friends they have. I got a case where this person was on the product and they started even going into meeting people that they knew before this. Because AA says, you got to get away from those people. This helps you get away from those people. So these things are important, and we can't get there if we're going in the wrong direction. And so what I'm seeing in the world is change, but now in the wrong direction. Yeah, I think the same.
Yeah.
At least it gives us hope. Yeah, because some of what I say is not scientific, but it's the truth.
Right.
I can feel it. You know what I mean?
Well, you've been in the field for a long time and you're a scientist. Yeah. So we're not talking about false information and fuzzy ideas. We're talking about stuff that's been proven and incredible research studies and double-blind, peer-reviewed, all of those things. And that makes
everything's peer-reviewed.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being part of the summit. This has been wonderful.
Good. I'm looking forward to people getting something out of it. Really is the whole body. It's a whole holistic approach. But you know what? If you don't do anything for people that are carrying in the beginning, they got such problems in terms of these transmitters are down. And even with other genetics, epigenetically, they're all on some impairment. That if you don't do anything to affect the brain, and try to bring about dopamine homeostasis, you're fooling yourself.
Right.
And you're taking money from patients. That is a waste.
Right.
Makes sense. If you don't really do it, you send them out, then you get the relapse. Now, some people may be able to get through, like we said, and we haven't done a genetic. Actually, there has been with the dopamine D2A1 allele. Yes, there have been studies over 10 years which showed that that's a high relapse to carry E1 allele. But there have been studies even mortality after 20 years. You got the E1 allele, people die more, die faster, really because they drink and drug. So that has been done. All right.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That was great.
Good. I appreciate it. and looking forward to it. And say
Yeah.
hello to Scott. Okay.
Go to KillibyCenter.com, Radical Recovery Summit, to see the full schedule of speakers and to register to watch these free online September 23rd and 24th in the Radical Recovery Summit 2017.